Welcome to the rant realm where I rant about anything that my $5 a month plus patrons ask me to rant about. Today's rant is for some goon who just said Barbie movie, Barbie movie. So I guess I will have to rant about the Barbie movie now. I saw it, has to be about a few weeks ago now, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I know there was like a tremendous amount of hype for a lot of people leading up to the release of it and Oppenheimer. I have a couple of friends who were super hyped over it, but I didn't necessarily go in with any expectations, so maybe that's not saying a tremendous amount, but I found it to be very, very enjoyable. Obviously, I mean, the set design and like the costume design and just the overall like aesthetic cohesion of the movie is like incredible. I feel like everybody agrees on that almost. It's just like a really, really, really cool, well realized idea and concept. But yeah. As far as the story goes, I liked it. I liked it. I liked it. The first scene, or like part of the opening sequence, when she realized, she's like, "Oh, you guys ever think about dying?" That was like the coldest setup. Like I was so hyped from that point on. Like it was such a good line. It was just timed so well, and I'm like, oh, this movie's about to be super like Truman Showy and existential, and that's gonna be the focus of it. But in reality, it was a lot more like grounded and somewhat political, I guess. But that's the part that I was like like totally focused in on throughout most of the movie. That's the thing that I was like fixated on. The Barbie world and then the real world and like the dichotomy between the two. Because the Barbie world is like heaven, but oh god, okay, so we're getting into some religious hot takes here. But you know, the idea of heaven, at least in the traditional sense, is just impossible. Because like humans would wish for a paradise, like Barbie land or whatever. But when you actually are watching it play out, it's like totally uncanny and somewhat disturbing. But in the end, until we're stripped of every aspect of our identity and turned into literal dolls, if we hold on to any shred, any like facet of like curiosity or anything like that, we're not going to be in heaven. It's just going to become a different version of the real world as the Barbie world begins to. It just has its own little silly quirks. But to live in heaven is like to live in a perfect world, or to like be absorbed into some sort of perfect solution, is just abandoning your humanity. So it's kind of hard to desire that as a human. I don't know. I've always felt it to be really weird and paradoxical. But for heaven to exist, it also would probably necessitate like a lower realm, or like a lower status than heaven itself. It's sort of like by definition needs something to compare itself to. And I guess that's like Ryan Gosling at the beginning of the movie, when his entire life experience and satisfaction hinges on whatever Barbie says and whatever Barbie tells him, and she almost always just like blows him off. And I know that's sort of layered. Like I said, there are like a lot. Like I would go so far as to say it was like the main focus were all of like the political underpinnings of this. But for whatever reason, I was just super focused in on the existential bit. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's something that's worth looking into, because it's almost like I had an aversion to engaging with it politically, which is interesting considering that it probably challenged people in like the position that I'm in. So maybe that'll be something I get into later on in the rant. So be sure to stick around. Yeah. Barbie World as an achievable goalpost for mankind, at least for now, is just, I don't know, totally illogical, totally nonsensical. Your head's in the clouds. But striving towards that kind of world, there's that quote. I don't know why anybody would know this quote, but there's a quote by a very famous football coach, probably the most famous football coach, named Vince Lombardi. And he talks about, he's like, we can never attain perfection, but we must chase perfection to attain excellence and all that. But if you just I mean, that sentiment rings true in a lot of respects, but like in this particular respect, seeking out making life more like a world that fundamentally doesn't work, like this Barbie world, and trying to work towards that is very like it's totally sick. It doesn't go anywhere. There's no point. It's like striving towards that kind of world only leads to more problems. And, you know, in the case of the Barbie, that leads to, you know, more girls feeling accomplished enough, not feeling accomplished enough without entering into, like, back-breaking, highly prestigious, lifelong commitment careers, and further intensifies an already rampant social issue of, like, body dysmorphia with the unrealistic... it's funny that I say that while I'm playing Kill la Kill. But with the unrealistic, like, body types and stuff. But that more so, I guess, speaks to trying to picture an ideal world through the lens of all the biases and, like, unconscious things that have been indoctrinated within you by the society that you are a part of, the time frame that you are a part of. But I feel like the point I wanted to make is that Barbie in the movie and, you know, Barbie as a doll in the real world was like an earnest attempt to be a positive... Well, okay. I can't... I know the creator lady was in the movie. I can't earnestly, like, confidently ascribe, like, positive intentions to, like, a mega corporate... Like, I have no idea what I don't know why Barbie blew up. That is not my thing to say. I don't know. Maybe it was, like, the most, like, sinister thing that anybody could ever imagine, and they were like making all those dolls out of like babies' severed hands or whatever. I don't know why my mind went there, but like I can't say that. But you know, in the movie, Margot Robbie is like, you know, she's trying to help, but then she just gets like, and she wants to be helped. All she wants to do is like help gals, you know. But she's just like rudely shut down and pretty well, you know, mischaracterized as a fascist by some like edgy tween. You know, granted, Barbie is like somewhat culpable of all the things that girl called her out for, and that girl absolutely has the right to be angry. But it makes the whole movie interesting to me, especially the ending. You know, like everybody becomes a normal person living together without being defined by the idyllic mirages cast by their gender. Well, how do we get there if not through the Barbie brand of idealism, though? Through it being profitable? So, like, they had to make it work under the system of capitalism, I guess, which is something that that tween was, like, actively, you know, critiquing. It's almost like it's impossible to fight all the battles at once and try to skip straight from the real world to... like heaven or like, you know, like a perfect world. So it's like you kind of got to take it one at a time or you'll never get your feet off the ground and you'll just be stuck shooting each other down like that freaking girl, just shooting everybody down. You know, everybody becomes too afraid to say something because they think they're gonna get called like a fucking fascist or something like that, when they really just want to help like push things in the right direction. But it's interesting for sure. I like that Will Ferrell played a man-child in this movie, really stepping out of his comfort zone, and I think this represents a burgeoning new chapter in the Will Ferrell saga, and I think his career is really going to start coming into his own now. Really excited that he's diversifying and taking on some new roles, developing his skill set as an actor. But, you know, obviously he killed it in this movie. I thought he was like... He had to have looked like 65. You could have told me he was 8. Maybe 9. Honestly, I'd give you 7. He acted like a young child. And, you know, that's what Will Ferrell does best, man. So, Will Ferrell obviously made the movie, and then at the end he's like, that's not going to make any money. And they're like, that is going to make money? And he's like, oh, I love the idea. And it's the funniest thing I've ever heard. But yeah, so absolutely stole the show. Total Sigma. But I don't know. I guess I'll loop back around to what I was talking about earlier with the whole like I really like most of my like mental notes on this movie were about like the whole existentialist tilt, which it kind of honestly, it kind of teased me with a little bit at the beginning. Like I thought that was going to be the whole movie. And I mean, I understand it's like, it fits in perfectly with like the actual like core message of the movie. It's like intertwined well. It's just I don't know. I mean, it seems kind of ironic because I just sort of talked about the political side of things, but it's like being. I guess you want to talk about it because being called out by media just bothers me. I mean, I was like, obviously you're being called out. It doesn't matter what it's by. It's gonna bother you no matter what. But I don't know. It just makes me feel like, unremarkable. Like flinging me off the tower of me that I just am so commonly inside of. Like I'm just so in my own head, and it's just like saying, hey, we know you, we know what you're doing. Stop trying to like fix yourself and help fix the society that you're a direct product of and contributor to. But like, when I hear that, my initial reaction is just like total rejection, and hence my hobby of analysis was conceived. That's actually why I started analysis, so I would not let myself off the hook. Because I would sometimes willfully, sometimes unwillfully, just totally forget everything about a show or a piece of media, and it was really starting to bother me. And this seems like the most enjoyable and painless way to remedy that, I suppose. But it was tough because like I'm such a stereotypical man in so many regards. Well, I don't know how many, but it's just my unwillingness to engage with challenging ideas, I think, throughout history has made me especially susceptible to being effectively called out by, like, these stereotypical pitfalls, in this case of masculinity. And it makes me feel like a doll. Not to be cringe, and also not to quote Ava, but, I don't know. But why do I kind of at the same time, and maybe it's just sort of like the things you don't like, they stick with you a little bit more, but it's still very alluring to me. I like being feeling like directly engaged with by media, obviously it's nice to feel understood, feel like there's actually like a dialogue happening with you and like actively engaging you. Maybe I need to go outside more. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe today's not the day to talk about any like weird pseudo-masochistic media tendencies I may or may not have. But this movie references on multiple occasions the concept of like wanting to be subservient and objectified, which is like such a human desire, and like just being obedient and being absolved of like any and all faults in your character that are typically exposed by like your decision making. It's kind of like I'm not proud of that video, but it's kind of like the chainsaw video I just made. Not to shoehorn plugging myself in here, but that's kind of. But not to shoehorn self promo in here, but it's like the idea of wanting to be a doll or like wanting to be somebody's pet, somebody's dog, woof woof. It's a very human desire. Because only in mimicry can we reach like our closest to perfection, and you can see this even on like a societal scale. We have to have an ideal to mimic, or like a god to fit into the ideal mold of, and humans have free will but nothing to do with ourselves but fight each other with it. So like, does that mean fighting like in horrible things are just like the essence of life? Like that's what life is? I guess I don't know. I'm gonna watch this back and like think I'm so stupid because it's like 3 a.m. and I'm just in the middle of my house talking about a movie that I watched a few weeks ago. But yeah, I just it's very a lot of interesting questions. So is fighting and war and conflict the essence of life? Find out this Saturday night as former light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz clashes with a surging 205 contender in Alex Poetan Pereira. I had to get the John Anik in there. UFC fighters are kind of like the guy Barbies. You know, think about it.